Jack, who's 8, and then I have a 3-year-old. COVID was a weird time. We know what autosomal recessive means, and we know, but COVID was a strange time. And we have baby Summit, who is a little girl, and just an interesting thing about that, knowing, everything we know about PDE and being really close. I'm in Georgia, so close to my hospital is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, is our like children's hospital, and then Emory is kind of our main centerpiece of like who runs Jack's care, because that's our genetics. And then really it's Ronnie Singh who does, she's a registered dietitian, and we're so lucky to have her close by. But so we went through Emory, who knew everything about Jack, and I had a CVS where they took a little piece of my placenta to test for Summit, and she is a carrier, but not affected by PDE. And we don't know on Rowan, obviously. She's not affected, of course. So anyway, okay, just reading really quickly in case anyone had questions. But and feel free to pop any questions in. I'll try not to be too scattered. Of course, we've been in this for 8 years, but our first kind of 6 months was the most grueling period. Jack was our second child, and
Oh
he
my
was
gosh, Leah, can I interrupt you? Did you get the shirts in?
yes,
Are you the first wearer of our shirts? Oh my gosh, I
yes,
can't believe
sorry, I meant to say that.
that's so fun.
Yes.
Let me see the back really fast because I haven't gotten mine shipped yet.
Can you see?
Oh, that's so good. Oh, dang, that's so good. Oh my gosh.
I have a picture of my husband and they're I love the color. They're like super soft. They're
Oh,
very,
good. I'm so glad. Oh, fantastic.
they're
I can't believe
all
they
my
actually got
family
shipped.
members.
Like during the whole time, I was like, is this even gonna make it to people? I can't believe it made it to people. Okay, awesome. Okay, good. I'm so
Like
sorry.
right before Jack's birthday too. So it's
Oh
perfect.
my gosh, that's so good.
And we brought all of ours here. My mom got my brother one, so we're like gonna take a picture in them. So yay.
We will definitely put that on the website and on the Facebook. Maybe that can be like a nice if you do your back, if you do your back, you can put that on the website. Oh, go ahead.
Awesome. Okay, what's I saying? Sorry. Okay, so anyway, Jack was we Jack was born, he was my second. Like I had a very well, an interesting thing about my pregnancy with Jack is early on I had a subchorionic hemorrhage. So like 6 to 7 weeks, I had like I was bleeding. I went in and I was like, I'm having a miscarriage. Went into my OB and they were like, nope, baby's high in the uterus. Like he's in there. And I was like, no, there's no way. There was a lot of blood. And they were like, he's in there, or whatever, baby's in there. And then they monitored me for like 3 weeks after that, and it resolved on its own. And then everything after that about my pregnancy was normal until about the last month when he would have hiccups all the time. And I was like, God, my baby has like, there's always these weird rhythmic movements. And the doctor was like, oh, weird, cool, babies have hiccups. It was just interesting to see that in the literature after having him, like, oh my gosh, because it would be followed by like prolonged periods of me not feeling him. I even went into the hospital one time, like I haven't felt him in 12 hours, and I was 8 months along. So anyway, no one caught anything. He was born seemingly normal, had a great delivery, everything like that. It's interesting looking back. My mom took pictures at my delivery, and he was absolutely having seizures. What we knew were seizures, like what we knew of him, because he would have a lot of like eye pulling and like his hand would do that a lot early on. But anyway, we didn't know. No one really knew what they were looking at. I always say now that babies do weird things. Babies look weird, right? I'm like not great around babies anymore because I'm always like, is that a seizure? What am I looking at here? Just having been, connected with so long, all my friends had kiddos with epilepsy. That's how I connected, and I connected a lot online in the early years. So anyway, at about 4 days old, we were home. Jack started crying, and he was like super irritable. He stopped eating. Like I couldn't soothe him. So we took him to the doctor. It was his like checkup, regularly scheduled checkup after you go home anyway. And I remember, I'll never forget, like our family practitioner nurse was like, "Did you forget how to hold a baby? Because he's just screaming his head off." And I'm like, in the waiting room. And he doesn't stop. They're like, oh, he probably has a little colic or, you know, maybe even a little jaundice. He looks a little yellow. We'll keep an eye. We went home, and that night, like several hours later, I mean, it had been probably like 15 hours of crying, and I'm not exaggerating. He stopped crying, and he also stopped eating, and he started like doing these kind of like strange twitches. And sorry, it wants me to confirm my language is Polish, but it is not Polish.
Yeah, I thought I was speaking in French earlier. I was like, well, that's generous.
Just English, please. That's all I got. And it was obvious, right? Like something, I was like, okay, my baby's not eating. He's not like something, he's staring off into space. This is just, and his head was like locked to one side. Like he wouldn't turn it. You couldn't turn it. And at the time we lived like in a basement apartment with my parents because we were in the process of moving to a new town. I like went upstairs and I was like, Mom, something's not right. Like this is not normal. She was like, let's give him a bath, you know? And we're like looking at this baby and we're like, something neurological is clearly wrong with him. So we took him back to the doctor and they were like, okay, we need you to go straight to the hospital. And so we did. We went to our local hospital and they called the children's hospital. They called the ambulance. He was clearly having seizures at that point. So he was in status by that point, but no one really knew except for when we got up to Pete's floor, they were like, the lady who we are like still in touch with because it was such an emotional time. She lives in our community. She was the nurse on the Pete's floor. Her name's Hope. She went outside of the room and started yelling, I need help in here. I need everyone in here now. Me and my husband are just in the corner with there's a little 5-day-old doing nothing, just like twitching and like head locked to the side. Like it was terrible, terrifying, like the worst thing ever. And in that time, they called the ambulance from Choa and his status had escalated, so he got the helicopter. The helicopter was rerouted from where it was going to Jack, and it was 5 days old. It was a brand new helicopter. Jack was 5 days old. They told me to go ahead and head on to the children's hospital, that usually only one parent could go. I was not doing great. And so I went with my mom, took me down to the children. It's about an hour and a half or so from where we live. So she took me on, and no one could get Jack out of status. It wasn't until the rescue team got there and did a paralytic that he was able, and by that time his pediatrician was there. People still remember when I had Summit, they were like, oh my gosh, that was your son. Like people from because we live in a fairly small town. We have a decent hospital, but it's fairly small. And I was telling you, she was like, oh my gosh, that's the only time our pediatrician is really tiny. She's like a tiny little fierce package. And they were like, that's the only time I've ever seen like Dr. Martin upset. She came running in, cussing and looking for Jack. And she got to see him right before he got on the ambulance or right before he got on the helicopter. And it was interesting because the ambulance had come too, and I had accidentally taken our car keys with me, even though my mom drove me. So my husband got to ride in the ambulance back with the team, and then Jack got to fly. And anyway, that's just a long way of saying he was in the PICU for about a week that first time. And no one ever did a pyridoxine test or the pyridoxine trial. Initially they didn't know, right? So babies' brains aren't myelinated enough to see that much. So they were like trying to let him get a few days older. He was still having seizures. He was put on phenobarbital and in PICU. And so then after like he was about maybe 8 days old, they let a few days go by and they did an MRI. And then we were told that he had a birth injury of some kind, that he had a brain injury, and that he was going to have cerebral palsy. Kind of got us started on all of our therapies and stuff, kind of got us started on what to expect for the early part of his life. So we kind of dug in getting to like developmental toys and things like that. I got him signed up for a bunch of like music classes. I was doing all this research on how to help brain injuries and babies. And anyway, he never stopped having seizures. So we were discharged on phenobarbital and thinking that we had a baby that had a mysterious birth injury. We even we had called my OB's office. Like, no, we were like, nothing happened. Like, no, there was no trauma that happened at his birth that could explain this. And I got to know a lot of people in the HIE community because that's what his first diagnosis was, which is like a hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. So like loss of oxygen or blood flow at the time of birth did not happen. Like we were like, I guess it happened and we didn't know, so we just didn't know enough back then. We didn't know enough to question. We didn't know enough to do anything but just try and do what the doctor said and take care of our baby in this crazy new life that we had. And so Jack just basically got sicker and sicker. He never stopped having seizures. So he would, and he was little in that this is in the first like 12 weeks of life. So about the first, not quite 3 months, he was just having so many seizures and they wouldn't give us a rescue med because he was so young. So he was on phenobarbital, Keppra, and Topamax by like 11 weeks. And we were at CHOA again because he would have these horrific seizures that would last just so long. And it was so scary and we couldn't stop them. And so we would go to CHOA. We were there again and he started having what they call gelastic seizures. And he was on an NG tube by this time because he was either having a seizure or just on so much phenobarbital that he couldn't. I mean, he was floppy because he was on so much phenobarbital. Like if we would try to give him formula, sometimes it would just like come right back up because he was like a newborn, just absolutely no tone because he was sleeping or seizing or anyway, such a tough first few months. And so anyway, we were in the hospital again and he starts having laughing seizures, they call those gelastic seizures. And then it's in the middle of the night and those kind of start turning into dacrystic seizures, which are crying seizures, basically. So he's like he's never smiled. He's like 11 weeks old. He starts laughing in a seizure. And of course, it's like straight out of a horror movie. And if you've had your child at a hospital at night, you know that it's like the residents on the baby doctors that are coming in and doing their best. But I'll never forget the sweet doctor's face who was like, I have no idea what to do here and kind of like slowly backed out. And then we finally got one who gave a rescue med. And those kind of resolved. And then the next day, the neurologist was like, we really need to do an MRS. We need to test and see we think you might have a brain tumor because these types of seizures are typically associated with it's like an HH, some specific type of tumor. And after that testing, they called a meeting and it was both of our parents, my husband and I, and they told us that they were diagnosing Jack with mitochondrial disease, that his brain had started to atrophy and would continue to atrophy until he passed away, likely in infancy. And the MRS has like all the different, I no medical background. So it's just more in depth than the MRI and it kind of shows like the different acids and, all someone with medical knowledge can help me out here. But anyway, they said that, and we were like, is there any hope? And they said, no, we're sorry. Go home, love your baby for the time you have left once we get him stable. They were like, take him out of all of his therapies. We were having to do feeding therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy because he was like a newborn, and he was always having seizures still. We would be in that music class that we still go to. I still take Summit to it, and he would have a seizure, and I'd go out in the lobby, and I'd be crying. I'd be like, "Do you want me to take my baby home and not come back because I'm upsetting everyone else?" And they were like, "No, like keep bringing him. It's fine." So anyway, they called the PACT team, which is the Pediatric Acute Care Team. It's their palliative care team at CHOA, and so they got us set up with palliative care. And the only thing I never talked about was end of life care because I was not ready. And they the PAC team would like always, swing by and visit, and I'd be like, I want to see them, get them out. Like I was always I was probably not very kind to them. I never like, I didn't want them around. They were like kind of the Grim Reaper hanging out by the door. I did not want to see them, even though they were very kind and like lovely people and serve a wonderful purpose. But I did not want them around my child, or me at that time. And so we eventually got stable. I mean, he was on Keppra, Topamax, phenobarbital. Oh God, I forget. What's the dirty one? Depakote? Is that what they call the dirty drug? Um, anyway, there was like 5 of them that he was on, plus diazepam. They gave us some of that for at home. But he was still really little. He was like 3 months old. And so at the same time, though, they sent a Mito panel to Baylor, and they had done some genetic testing on him. They had done like 2 spinal taps early on because they were convinced he had meningitis. We had been through so much different testing. At one point, there was a nurse like yelling at someone on the phone, like, I've already taken it, I can't take any more blood from him. We've already done, and it was like horrific to us in the beginning, and they were just kind of trying to figure out what was going on with him. So they sent a Mito panel, and then they also sent a more in-depth, I guess, epilepsy panel or more in-depth like genetic panel to Emory at that time. And this is like the thing that kind of has frustrated me for forever. We went home and we didn't find out. This would have been in like October, maybe mid-October. We didn't find out until end of December, early January that Jack had PD. So like, why does it take so long for that stuff to be run? We found out on the Mito panel a little bit earlier because he had started developing infantile spasms. And so we were in the hospital again in December, and we had planned this like end of life trip to go to the beach like with all the family and stuff, and he had to start that really strong steroid, and so we had to cancel that because he couldn't, like, he had to be at home because it's almost like kind of going through chemo. It like shuts their system down. And so we were in the hospital, and they came back and they were like, Mito panel's back. There's nothing. There's like a VUS on the liver panel, like on the liver part of the Mito panel. So he doesn't have Mito. And we were like, I knew it. I knew it. We had some really great neurologists that worked with us the whole time and like would let me text and email. And I was doing all this research, and I was like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not multiple organ systems. It's his brain is the only thing affected, and maybe GI, but it's because he can't eat. Like he has an NG tube because he can't eat. He's never awake, or he's having a seizure, or he's on, medicines. He can't eat. So I was like, and they were presenting him, a different whatever they do, the meetings that they were doing, like they were presenting his case and get different opinions and stuff. And we just knew, we were like, keep pushing, like it's not Mito. And we're just trying to keep hope too, like maybe it's not this, maybe. And I didn't know enough about genetics to be like, wait for the genetics, I was devastated. And then a little bit after that, so we knew like, no Mito, okay, like what are we dealing with? We still have a very sick baby having seizures all the time. And then the genetics came back from Emory, and our neurologist, it was Dr. Coe. She is in Nebraska now, but she was like so excited, like called me so excited. And I'm like, what is she like? Why are we so happy? And she was like, he has PDE. And I'm like, okay, like maybe, don't sound so excited. And she was like, there's a treatment, like it's everything changes. And I was like, okay. And everything changed. He got to wean off of every single anti-epileptic drug that he was on. It took a while. By that point, we had a bottle of phenobarbital. I mean, it was, the pharmacy always had to custom order stuff from us. It was kind of embarrassing. Like they knew us, we were like the sad people with the sick child that had to get special medicine from everywhere. And it took a while, but he got to wean off of the phenobarbital. He went to Emory and did, we did all of the specific genetic testing, each of us, my husband, and then this was the fun phone call. The geneticist like, is there any way y'all could be related? And no, there's not. But we both have the same mutation, my husband and I, on our ALDH7A1. And they were like, this is so rare. Like, we don't usually see the same, like, I misspelling or me, like, I forget the words that they use. And then I have to use the dumbed down words for me. But they're like, it's just why, like, it's so rare. And it was funny because I was trying to kind of blame it on my husband. He has sickle cell trait that he's affected by. And he's white, like Caucasian as it gets. So that's always fun. Like when we were in college and stuff, and he would go to the doctor and like early in our marriage, and they'd be like, I don't know. He's like, no, it's me. And they'd be like, is your dad African American? And he's like, no, like I just he actually has infections in his spleen from going to Colorado as a young kiddo. So anyway, I was like, it's you. You're the one with all the weird genetic stuff. You did this to our kid. Jokingly, of course. And we were like, literally, we are both equally responsible, which is so funny. He was like, ha. That was so funny. So, I mean, so anyway, everything did change, like I said, and he got to wean off of all of those anti-epileptics. And as he started doing that and started the pyridoxine, probably even just like starting the pyridoxine, we always say like a light came on in his eyes. All of a sudden, he was just like a different child. He could see you, he could interact a little bit. He was there, there was something behind his eyes kind of for the first time. And that was really wonderful. And then it took a little while to kind of get into genetics to start the formula, the full triple therapy, because we were kind of told, well, there's a newer treatment, and we just have to do some lab work and kind of go figure out. I think we're super lucky that we have that like registered dietitian and that program at Emory, and Dr. Singh was familiar with PD and familiar with like GA1 and all of the metabolic disorders, and titrates those diets on a regular basis. And so she was kind of like ready to go, and I was just freaking out. Like in my mind, every day that he didn't have the formula, he was losing brain cells. Like that's kind of how they described it to us, that he would just continue to have brain cell loss. And so I'm like, we gotta get that formula in there. We gotta get him started. So and then once he did get started, it was great. He had been on an NG tube for like 8 months. And I finally bit the bullet and said, let's do the G tube. NG tube, G tube to me always, like, we met a lot of kids along the way, and a lot of kids with Mido because we had that diagnosis. And to me, the kiddos who were getting their G tubes were getting sicker, like losing more abilities. And so I like kept fighting it. And really, it was a freedom thing for us and for Jack. Once he got the G tube, that stupid NG tube got out of there, tape off his face, and he could, work on feeding therapy again and stuff like that. And so we've been, hitting the ground hard with, it was feeding and then speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We've even done some intensives along the way, some CME and other physical therapy intensives to help. And I can say that Jack is going into second grade now. We start early August, and he is with his typical peers. He does receive some supports, but he has graduated from PT and OT. He has a speech consult. They like to stay on consult, but because he says he pronounces his THs as an F. So, like very typical kiddo kind of things. He's done that therapy with a buddy of his that's typical. And so he does well. There's some things to be seen in the future as math and stuff gets tougher, but and he gets some breaks, he gets different things, but he's with typical peers. He runs, he jumps, he plays, he has a G tube still. He gets Jack's specific diet is 24 grams of protein, like intact protein per day. That's what he can have. And then he gets 45 grams of Gluterex-2 mixed with 16 grams of arginine. So that's all mixed up, and he gets 10 ounces of that formula per day. Jack's is a little bit different because he has really slow gastric emptying from different things. And so we have to take that into account too with his formula. Along the way, he he's gotten better and better, you know, and better, but he is kind of his Achilles heel is the stomach bug. As I'm sure, you know, all the kiddos with metabolic disorders, right when COVID started, he got a really bad stomach bug. And we went into the hospital and they kind of released him too soon because Jack looks very typical. And he is very typical in many ways, except for metabolically. So when he has a bad bug like that, you almost have to give him several extra days of gut rest before you can, because he'll kind of seem like he's okay, and then everything comes out. You know, like his stomach just, it's almost like explodes again. And he will go from okay to, you know, 2 days later he's in status. We've like seen it. We're pretty good about calling it now and just taking him on to the hospital, even though he hates it, to get everything he needs via IV. And anyway, he was sent home too early, basically, and then we tried to manage him at home and he got sick again. And by the time that we got back to the hospital, he had to get a PICC line. And his dietitian was like, they're gonna kill him. Like they have got to put him on gut. They kept trying to put things in his like different, like his formula, which is already hard on his stomach, and like anything like Pedialyte in his G tube. And I was like, I'm not put anything else on his stomach. And there have been times, so when he gets really bad off like that, and it's happened maybe 2 or 3 different times, he gets, they say it looks like ICU delirium. It looks like neurostorming to me. He will scream and writhe and like not open his eyes. He gets in like, it's almost like a seizure state, but he's not having a seizure. It's awful. He had to get Thorazine last time it happened. And yeah, the people, like the nurses and the people outside were like, oh my gosh, he's a different kid, you know, once they got his brain reset. So it's just interesting. It's always great. I'm sad that I haven't got to be on any other webinars yet. I always want to keep up and, you know the best ways to help Jack because he hates that he's different. He doesn't, you know, want to be different. He wants to eat what everyone else can eat. He wants to eat meat. He wants to, we're working really hard, especially now that he is 8, you know, on some independence, and he will do it, but like even just me talking about this beforehand, he was like grumbling and hissing like a cat, like hissing. You know, that's why I kind of have stopped sharing in the past few years as much as I did on social media, because I felt like I was doing that more for me and for like my healing and connecting with others. And I felt like I was violating his privacy a little bit and that he was, you know, wanting things to be kept more private. And so I wanted to respect that. And I'm trying to find a good balance of doing that, but also helping others because honestly, the triple therapy treatment saved his life and changed our lives. And, you know, and we still have more to learn and more growing to do because he's in kindergarten, he had a seizure, and in first grade, he had a seizure. And when Jack has a seizure, it's like 5 to 10 minutes. And the first time we think it's because he gets strep throat all the time. He's probably going to have to get his tonsils out. And then he has to get a really souped up version. It's like Augmentin ES or something. So like, I guess the regular Augmentin has like never worked for him. He just gets sicker. So he gets the ES, causes diarrhea. And sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. And this one particular time, he had such bad diarrhea, but he really wanted to go to school that day, and he had it, and he had it that morning. And I said, you know, buddy, I don't know, but he misses so much school, because when he's sick, you know, when he's down, he's really down. And it takes a little while for him to recover. So I let him go and he had a seizure. And we think it's because he wasn't absorbing, like, even though he was keeping in all his formula, obviously if things are running through you, you're not absorbing them. And he gets 150 milligrams of pyridoxine twice a day. So 300 total, 400 when he's sick. So like when he was having a fever with his strep throat, we added the extra 50 milligrams in the morning and in the evening. It just seems to help. It's something that the doctors have always done when we go in. I don't know. I know I'm
Yeah,
just like probably leaving out little pieces, but I feel like I could talk forever and ever. And
I was
yeah.
gonna ask you to talk a little bit about like the different ways you got involved, like with different organizations and what you found out, about some of those limitations, or not limitations, but kind of like, I don't know, like I guess like how far, what was beneficial involvement, where you feel like there was opportunities, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to do tons of advocacy on social media and just kind of got linked up with um I got some personal, I guess, grants from Global Genes to go. Like I went to the summit when it was in San Diego. And then I did end up working for Every Life Foundation for Rare Disease on as like a consultant because I do a lot of I have a degree in English, but I've always done like comms for work, and so like social media and stuff, and that's what I did for Every Life. And I learned that that was not my favorite area because it was a lot of like obviously we always have to get money from the pharmaceutical companies, but it was a lot of like if we can't monetize the treatment, then we don't care about your kid. So it was a lot of like no one really caring to hear about PD or like it was, I didn't love it. I will say that. But what I did get to work on was the Newborn Screening Reauthorization Act of 2019. And so it was a really interesting look at the inside of how political newborn screening is
I
and
bet
how
Nelly's just she's not
the
here.
rush works, what is it, the Unified Screening Panel, how all that works, how things get on newborn screening, having to talk to these members of Congress that you have no idea what you're talking about and don't really care, but it's a pretty neutral bill, so they're like fine to sign it, but you're so passionate about it, and you have this baby with you. And then there you go, recommended uniform screening panel. And then I actually attended. So I find Global Genes to be, and if they're still, it's been a while since I've been involved with them. Jack was younger. And I would in Every Life is in DC, so I was having to travel, and it didn't work out for our family. And it was kind of like I'm so lucky to have this kiddo alive. I need to be taking care of him. But my heart always wants to do so much more. It's just hard to balance like his care, and I have 3 kids and doing more. But I was able to attend a newborn screening boot camp in Chicago through another grant from Global Genes. And these are all like personal ones, like that I was just following them and doing research and stuff and found you can just apply. If they're still doing these things, usually you can just apply on their website to go to whatever it is. If it's it used to be Rare on the Road, and that was Global Genes and Every Life, and they would go to like 4 different places across the US and just try and get people involved in like speaking to your members of Congress about things that benefit rare disease patients and rare disease drugs and stuff. And then also like learning more about Global Genes and how and like Global Genes could probably be a really beneficial one for Cure PDE because they could give Cure PDE money to for like even for like our own retreat. Sometimes they would do for like patient specific organizations. And then Nord also does stuff like that, or if they're still like is Nord still around? National. I got 2 grants. I got a grant to fly on a private jet to go to the conference. Nord's, I forget what their conference. They have like a patient advocacy summit too. And so I was able to attend that one, and that was really fun. It's all just a bunch of classes. It kind of depends on who they have speaking and stuff. It wasn't always a lot of metabolic disorders, but at the newborn screening boot camp, it was all metabolic disorders. So that was the place to be. That was awesome. And that really like lit a fire in me. And learned so much about newborn screening. And it did kind of made me feel like empowered, whereas working in DC and like talking to all these people from pharmaceutical companies and people from members of Congress and stuff, I was like, oh, PD will never get on the newborn screening. Like this will never happen. This is crazy. But all this research, all the grants, everything that Cure PD is doing has reignited a lot of that hope that we can, early diagnosis and early treatment is obviously the way to go. My story, it would have saved us so much heartache and so much time. And Jack probably a lot of he also he's been diagnosed with level 2 autism. And his diagnosis is like level 2 autism as associated with a genetic disorder. So it's like the brain changes that have happened with his PDE have caused that. And it's interesting, Jack is Jack, but it's kind of what I'm saying when I'm like, I'm not sure if I can get him to the retreat because he's just so like he perseverates on things. And, there are things that Jack really struggles with. Like lab work and anything like any kind of doctor thing at all. People in wheelchairs or like that look like we're at the doctor. He really struggles. And has some. He honestly probably needs some like medical therapy. I just have struggled to find someone. I've tried to look through Emory, so like a therapist who specifically works with kids that have to, see doctors and get lab work. And I know there are, Jack didn't even have to go that often, right? Like twice a year. That is not that often for titrating diets and stuff. And we used to have to give him, oh gosh, Ativan. And then he like told us he didn't like how he feels. And when it would start, I guess he would come down from it, he would scream and scream, like say he hates you. And so, just finding a balance for him is tough. He used to hate getting his G tube changed, but you have to change it. He has to have a working G tube to get his medicine and get his formula and, have a working brain. And trying to like get him to understand that he used to have to be sedated to get it. And then he did not do well, like coming off of sedation. So now he wants me to change it in his sleep, and he knows when it needs changed. And he'll just touch it a lot, and I'll be like, bud, is your YouTube loose? Like, does it need changed? And I kind of look at it and mess with it, and he'll be like, just do it when I'm asleep. And then I'll usually give him like a little something. Like we have clonazepam for after seizures and stuff too. So I usually give him a little bit of that so he sleeps well, like sleeps hard, and then I'll do it. And then when he wakes up in the morning, he always goes, I know what you did. I'm like, and you're happy, aren't you? Because now your tubie feels better. So anyway, there's a lot, in the 8 years. And I've shared a lot on Instagram, and I'll put my handle in there. I'm maybe connected with some of you. Um, and I have worked with, I had like been really connected with Gene DX for a while too. And I can't remember, there was something we were going to do, but it was like right when me and my husband were headed to Hawaii. And like, how often do you get to go to Hawaii? And I was like, it's time. We're 6 hours behind. But they've always been really great. And like I bet they do like grants and stuff too. So I think just some great organizations that could help us, as a
Did
group.
they have PDE on their epilepsy panel? I assume so, right? Gene DX.
Please say it again. Sorry.
Do they have PDE on their epilepsy panel for Gene DX?
I think so. We've always had to do the single gene testing. Like I had to do with Summit, like we had to do the single gene testing. And then I was like, go ahead and do a microarray.
Maybe
And
Curtis or Christy know if they're still on, if PDE is on epilepsy gene panels. I think it should be.
yeah.
Yeah, so GeneDx just filed for bankruptcy, sadly. We're
Seriously?
not sure exactly what the future of GeneDx will be. So did, well, they sort of filed a pre-file for bankruptcy like Invitae did. But yes, our lab spent a year talking to every commercial lab to make sure that the genes for B6 responsive epilepsies were all on all of the epilepsy panels. They're also on all of the intellectual disability and developmental delay panels. They're also on all of the like childhood treatable disease panels. I mean, honestly, it's crazy how sometimes it takes 10 or 11 emails to laboratories to get them on, but they're on all of them. And I will say I'm so grateful for the advocacy for newborn screening. I think we're going to have some really exciting news coming out, but uh, I'm I've given a bunch of talks in the US, and I think a bunch of states are considering screening this year. I'll be in South America in October, although my Delta flight was just canceled for October. Is that possible?
Probably all
To
that
talk about,
crazy Microsoft stuff that was going on.
yeah, some of South America is thinking about doing newborn screening for PDE. There is an official vote for 2 countries in Europe coming up in September for newborn screening for PDE. And so I think there'll be some really exciting news, and we still are engaging with the RUSP. We've talked to them about 7 or 8 times now. And I think the goal is to formally apply and put pressure on them. What we were hoping is that one of the countries would approve it, and then it would put a lot more pressure on the RESP to consider it. So, I mean, it's been a really long journey for us as scientists and clinicians, for you guys as families. I think the reason we got there is that we're working together, right? Like I think we need each other. And so, Leah, I'm just grateful to you and everybody else who advocates for it. And when this happens, and it's going to happen, it's going to be a big group effort.
And Jack, you know, it's interesting because Jack's story is kind of like long. It's not super digestible. It's not easily packaged. A lot of different crazy and upsetting things happen. So it's not always like a super easy one to tell. You know, it's not like, oh, we had this, I don't know, you know, when I'm trying to advocate for it. And that's kind of like metabolic disorders. They're complicated, you know, they're complicated. And I don't know. I'm always been interested, especially as we meet clinicians and going forward, people are always like, why did they not do the pyridoxine test where they give a big, you know, like a loading dose of B6 in the hospital and see if they're responsive to it? They never. And it was, you know, we were at a leading children's hospital. I loved a couple of, it was the luck of the draw back then, right? Like, because we would be coming in through the ER, who we got each time. But like as far as neurologists, but we had some great ones that were following him, and kind of after the fact we're like, oh my God, I thought at one point we should do a pyridoxine test. And I'm like, next time pop that one in there. And then I always also wondered like why it took so long. Like, why was PD not on that first round of like infantile epilepsies they tested for? We were sitting right by Emory at Children's Healthcare. They were like freaking out because they, you know, they're doing every other test in the book, spinal tap and everything else. And, you know, there are just these other simple things that could have answered the question.
Yeah, I bet your story resonates with a lot of people, because I feel like these are the families I talk to, not just in the US, where sometimes we do have access to better testing, but that's not true everywhere, right? That if you're at one hospital and you drive 30 minutes the other way, you might not get it. I think our goal is for rare diseases in general, for all of these diseases we've been talking about today, not just PDE, is we want to be able to help clinicians make these diagnoses as soon as possible, because they probably heard about it in medical school for 5 minutes, don't remember it. You know, it's we want to give them tools where they don't have to think about it. So that's why newborn screening is great. That's why we're pushing for more access to genomic sequencing for every kid in a hospital, because no one should have to go through that story, Leah, for especially no matter what.
Yeah, there's so many idiosyncrasies that I also think about. So I don't have a child with PDE, but I have a nephew with PDE. And I always think back how weird it was that at the time I was doing research on B7 disorders, and then Andre was born with B6. And I'm like, I was so close, you know, because like if I would have thought of, because I remember being like, oh, you should, you know, you should think of like B7, but like obviously that wasn't even it. And I think I'm gonna get this right, but I know that I think Anastasia was at UCLA and they had no idea. And then oh no, they were at Cedars-Sinai and they had no idea. And then they went to UCLA. So just same, like you said, same city. And that's what it took, you know, to go to a different hospital who had a different perspective. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every time I had one of Hazel's doctors say, oh, I think I read about that in medical school, her medical bills would be paid.
Medical
But
bill.
we
Yeah,
were
let's not
lucky
even-
because the guy who was there when she was delivered was actually from Seattle. He was filling in. And then he's like, yeah, I think it's metabolic, and sent us to Denver. And then Curtis saw her paperwork come in. So we got very lucky.
That's awesome. But we're so unlucky that my husband can't even go to Colorado because of that sickle cell trait. So never been over there. But it's always interesting too. Is everyone kiddo with PDE on Gluterex? Is that the kind of, I don't know, I'm asking everyone and Curtis and
I've never even heard of that word.
Gluterex. Okay, cool.
I also have never heard of that word.
I'm
Yeah,
wondering
never.
if like just what, yeah, just interested in what everyone else is everyone else triple therapy? Like, is that what y'all call it?
Well, tell us what Gluterex is first, so that we.
Oh, Gluterex is his formula. It's the lysine tryptophan free formula. And I think it's like more specifically a GA1 formula, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then arginine is like the big Jack.
We're on that. Yeah, I have like 11 cans of those now that you say it. Yeah.
You have what?
We have like 11 cans. I have a stash.
Of Gluterex?
Yeah.
Is that what your kiddo's on?
Yeah, she's on a mix of breast milk and that formula.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Finn is on the,
which is what we just did. We were just in the labs listening to this while the poor people were listening to her cry.
Oh.
so Finn is on, I guess it's called Animix. I think it's a GA1
Okay.
as well. But they have us mix it with whole milk, and I'm wondering if anybody else mixes theirs with whole milk. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
What are the like what's Finn's and then Becky, tell me what your kiddo's name is again. I'm sorry. What are their like I mean, obviously they're very little, but Jack can have 24 grams of protein a day. And when he was little, it was like 9, you know, maybe or even less probably.
Yeah, Finley turns 3 on August 5th, and she can have 14 to 16 grams of protein a day.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow,
so we
that's
really
look good.
Oh, they have always looked good. And even if I maybe give her something that she shouldn't have, not like crazy proteins, but maybe, have a cupcake or whatever,
Right.
they've always looked good. So, and
Our
if she's
Jack's
hungry, I'm
last
gonna
labs
let her
were not
eat,
good. What'd you say?
Really? I said if she's hungry, usually I'm like, we're gonna let you eat, like
Yeah.
if you're hungry, they're growing kids.
Yeah.
You
Well, at 8, it's hard. It's really, really hard. It's like one of our biggest struggles too,
Yeah.
Luckily he doesn't like ice cream, so that's not a big deal, but it's like pizza, right? Everyone wants to have a freaking pizza party. And I'm like, that's half his day. One slice is half his day. If he can have 24 grams and a slice, like a Papa John slice is 12 grams. And it's hard. It's so hard. I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, like maybe 3 months in. And so that has made it easier because we eat the same like vegan cheese and things like that. He eats a lot of hummus, which I think people think has a lot of protein, but has like less than you think. Like the little small cups have 2 grams, and like guacamole and things like that. But
So does the piece of pizza have the 12 grams of protein without the cheese on it?
probably not, but I don't, like if I'm
That's what I do
doing,
for her. I just rip the cheese off. I'm like, here, eat the bread and
smart.
sauce.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just look, like look it up on some of the like trusted websites. And if we're doing Papa John's or whatever, like if we're at a party, then I'm like, oh, it says Papa John's 12 grams for a large slice. And then I just sometimes I'll half it, or try to do a different thing. But he's very observant too. So
That's hard. It is hard.
But
Can I ask you, I guess it's a personal question, but Finley is my first and only child. So going into motherhood this way, having another has been very scary to even think about for me. And like you said, I resonated so hard when you were like, every baby I see, I'm like looking at them like you're not worried about that movement. Like I'm over here like, take it to the hospital right now. So how was that having a third and not having the same experience?
it was hard. It was really hard
Yeah.
at first. I was convinced that like something was going to happen, right? If I had a
Right.
baby, we were going to get meningitis or
Right.
something else was going to happen.
To wind up where
Like
you were. Yeah.
we were going to have an HIV, and I
Mhm.
didn't care. Like, I was like, it doesn't matter. I've seen the beauty, quality of life come
Right.
from like, sorry, I got distracted by the lysine. Okay, we have to talk about lysine more. But the doctors don't get to define quality of life for you, right? Like, we thought our child was going to be profoundly disabled, even when we thought he was going to live. So I was going to be okay with whatever. I just want to know, like, I just wanted to,
Right.
so that we could stay on top of it. And there's some really great, like, since it's autosomal recessive, 25% chance. Only one of my 3 children have it. And the CVS I thought was a pretty easy, not too terrible process. And there was only, like, a small chance of miscarriage. That helped me. I would have
Yeah.
been happy for my 3rd child to have PD. If they had PD, I would have delivered somewhere differently. I wanted to
Yeah.
deliver by our children, because I'm an hour and a half away from our children's hospital. So I wanted to be right by the children's hospital and Emory, and I would, like, if Summit would,
Right.
I wanted everything started ASAP. I've talked to a couple of parents who have kids like Jack, and it's such a bummer that Jack didn't start the lysine tryptophan free formula as a baby. But a lot of the kids that, or not, I mean, we don't have a lot of kids, but the one family in particular that I talked to, they said their son has started, like, like, he doesn't want to drink his medicine, his formula. And so
Right.
sometimes I am kind of feel lucky that he has the G tube and I can just put it in there and no muss, no fuss. People always ask how long he'll have it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, so if he's not gonna, we have not found, our dietitian has, we've asked, like, is there not a liquid pyridoxine that could go in better, because you're
Finley
crunching,
takes liquid
you're crunching.
pyridoxine.
Well, they've never, you'll have to show it to me, because, and then I'll
I
have to
get off
show
of Amazon because no insurance will cover anything for her. I can send you the link. It's $14 a bottle, and on Prime Day it was like $9.
And it's, I guess the dosing is on there, right? Like,
It is, yeah. I take the bottle with us when we go to our neurologist appointments or whatever, and so they just adjust with the weight. Because obviously there's like flavoring and stuff in it
Yeah.
too, but
I'm
I just put it in a
out here
syringe and
crushing pills in a syringe and adding
well,
water.
see, that's what I couldn't do anymore because obviously she was taking it by mouth. So as a kid, that tastes disgusting,
Yeah.
Mommy, hi, babe. Yeah, I will try in a second, thanks.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll send you the link for that for sure.
Yes. All right, everyone, send me the I'll put my I'm really bad at this messaging thing. So my mom has, like, a touchscreen computer, so I'm the grandma over here. But I'll put my info in here, because I would love, and then I think we all have each other's emails from the, like, parents, but I would definitely love any, I think things too, like, Jack's 8, and then a lot of your kids are younger, so there may be even better things that our docs just never, like, our doctors at home, they take great care of Jack, but they're, I don't think they're out there looking for the most recent things to update his care to or anything, so I feel like it's something I definitely need to stay on top of. And I have some friends whose kiddos do Glutarade, which I guess is like the next version of Glutarex, which is the formula. And so it's like Gatorade, but I don't know.
We tried a different formula and it was like vanilla flavored, and she would not even touch the cup. She was like, I don't know what that is, but that's not it.
Yeah.
She still drinks quite a bit of formula. They will adjust it, like if she's not drinking it, like the powder and stuff, but that's still hard when you're going and doing stuff just to keep it cold. And we're going on our first trip with her by plane soon, and I'm worried about that. So I've like messaged all the doctors and gotten all the notes.
I was about to say, get your notes so you can be like,
I have literally 3 notes. So as soon as they start talking, I was just gonna pull my notes out here.
Yeah.
Here you go.
There you go.
We're going through. Yeah, here you go.
There have been so many times I'm like, this is our, like, sometimes I'm check a bag, I'm like, my son's stuff is in here, I will not, and it's like, just really, it's like B6, if they like look at it, they'd be like, ma'am, I'm like, it's so important, you have no idea. Stay back.
Really, they don't have any idea. It's crazy talking to people that have never heard about it. Obviously, I've never heard about it either. And you were talking about doctors and stuff. Like, oh, I heard about that once. Her neurologist was like, I wrote a paper on it in school and I've never seen it before. I was like, well, here you
There
go.
you go.
Here's your case.
We
Yeah,
want to give you a guinea pig now.
I
Really care
know.
about. It's like nice though, because then they care, like you want them to care. So if like it's a rare, you're like, that's kidding me.
Her pediatrician took us to a different room. So a different, like a training nurse or in training or whatever could meet her. She's like, this is the girl I told you about. Because she started having seizures right after she had her first vaccine. Is that the hepatitis B, maybe?
Oh, scary.
Well, so I wouldn't let them give her any more vaccines because that's the only thing that I had to correlate
Right, you're
on.
only
You know, like an hour after the vaccine, she's
Oh.
having a seizure. So I'm like,
Oh,
no, don't touch her. And so she asked me questions all the time. She's like, can I share her story? I'm like, please do. Please talk about it.
Yeah,
Tell everybody that you can.
Jack was going for one set of vaccines early on, and he started having a seizure on the table before. And the pediatrician was like, "We're not gonna do the vaccine. You can take him out to the hospital." And I'm like in the hospital, like unvaxxed seizure baby, like get us to a safe room.
Yeah.
I'm like sickest baby here, which is not,
So
you know.
I'm sick. I'm kind of surprised when Jack went to the hospital and they gave him like the concoction. That's literally the story that you just shared. Thanks for sharing that, actually. But we have a very similar one, and they had just happened to give the B6 with the Keppra because I guess that's like a mood stabilizer. Usually, they usually
they do,
pair them up. And so they had intubated her, and so her body wasn't seizing anymore because it couldn't. But her brain still was. So when they pushed the B6, thankfully, with the Keppra, that's what stopped it. And what's so funny is when we came home, the last thing that I was worried about was giving her the B6. I was like, give her all the epilepsy drugs. Like I thought that's what was most important. So we were crushing up a pill to give to a 5-day-old or whatever. And I was like, I don't really care that much about it. And turns out that's exactly what we did.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah.
I had a geneticist tell me, Jack got really sick with a stomach bug actually on the day. He likes to do it like in a really big fashion. We were moving into our new house we live in now. It's about 2 years ago, and he had a stomach bug, and I was like, it's time to go to the hospital. And like I said, it's an hour and a half away. And my husband was like, you need to just wait. We have to go to the attorney's office and sign papers tomorrow for the house. I'm like, I have to be there. Like, you have to be there. Just wait.
Right.
I don't know if I can and so I did. Next morning, and that was like the scariest, but like he sleeps in my bed at night now because this is the scariest thing. I went in his room at like 6:30 and he was in a seizure, and he went up like beside him, and so I took him and kind of took him into the bathroom to try and like see if I got a rag and I just see if it was awful, his body, because I think it's bigger, it's hard,
Yeah.
Like I used to think that I had the worst because I had the sickest baby, this little baby, but gosh, it's so easy when they're babies because they don't really know. They just want that comfort after.
That's what I think about all the time too. Just like her being this big now. And because usually they are unconscious when that happens, like falling and hurting themselves and stuff like that. So that is very tough. She's luckily not had any since, but I don't know, having a baby during COVID too, I didn't let people meet her for like the first year of her life. I was like, don't you come near us.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
And
I'm still that way. I'm like, please.
They told us like with Mido, kids get sick, like you could
Yeah.
get a bug and it could kill you. So it was like,
Yep.
stay away from this kid. It was awful. We were like the boy in the bubble it was maybe just 2 full months, but it felt like a lifetime.
How is schools with the diet and everything? I know a lot of kids have allergies and stuff now too. So
Yeah, and
like
actually,
sharing foods and stuff.
it makes it easy enough. We always have I have a meeting on the 1st, because we'll have a new team. He has the same like principal and stuff. They'll have a new teacher. And so my thing that I tell them, because it's so confusing, like people don't know what protein is, first of all, like for the record.
I didn't really
And I know
either
it's
before I
lysine,
was
and I
in
know
it,
that
you know.
different things have like the way that our dietitian controls it is through protein, because it's obviously I don't know how to calculate lysine, and I don't think that
right there with
any
you.
companies even do
I didn't
it.
even know that you could until somebody said that on here a few
Well,
times
the
ago.
only thing I know about lysine is I used to work at the Humane Society and we gave it to cats when they had colds. Like you would give it to them for immunity. So, anyway, shoot, what was I saying?
Oh, how to
That's
count the
why I say
proteins.
protein because that's how our dietitian like controls it. So I know it's lysine, but I say protein. And so my thing is they cannot understand. Like I tell the teachers and everyone all about it. If you only have 24 grams a day, basically my rule is he can only eat what I send in. And I get all the trash back. So like if I send them with all the Ziploc bag, I give the teachers everything they need. But
Right.
like if his snack that day is goldfish, I get that, or I get whatever's in the package. I put fish in the snack package. It's 3 grams. So if they send it back to me and he's only had half a gram and a half somewhere else he can have, So
Right.
that's how I calculate that. And that's my rule. Like he only eats what I send in, unless like if it's someone's birthday or something, they have to text me and like, hey, can Jack have, and they'll be like, hey, can Jack have juice? And I'm like, yes. Do you not know what like if it says 0 grams?
So you just count the back of the packaging,
Yeah.
not necessarily the ingredients that are in it.
No, we just go by the back.
So I did that before, and then I talked. Is her name Jen? She has the older daughter.
Emma's mom.
Okay. Yes, Emma's mom. And I talked to her and she was like, well, if it's like over a certain amount, just like cupcakes, an egg is baked over like 8 or 12 cupcakes. She's like, one cupcake's probably like 1 gram of protein. And I'm sitting here spending like $180 on a vegan birthday cake because I didn't know the difference. So our nutritionist
Yeah,
is.
it just scares me too, because in my mind it's always like if
Right.
you eat too much, brain will seize. And I know it's not like
Right.
I know it's not like that. And I had a geneticist once explain it to me when he was really sick. And they were like, so this is what here's like the blood-brain barrier, and this is what we do over here to like kind of break things
Yeah.
down on the blood. And then when it crosses over into the brain barrier, that's where the pyridoxine comes in. And well, and so it's still very hard for me to explain it back to another person. So you just have to, at school, you just make it easy as possible for their caregivers, their teachers, and for them. Like, so obviously everything now that comes in has to be purchased because of that. So they just send me and that's what I go by now. I'm always like, I wish I could go back and be like nutritionist to understand better. And I'm not a good cook. I hate to cook. And so I know like Jack would have been so much better off with just like a wonderfully like smart baking mom that could do all these like, vegan.
No, he got the right mom. And you were telling your story too. Tell me again what your nurse's name was.
Hope.
You kept Hope. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
Yes, we did. We always, I'll never forget, we would take them on walks at the park because that's really all we could do, me and my mom. And I'll be like, I heard another story. Someone's cousin they were told they were going to pass away and they're still here. Like you're like, I always tell people like medicine is not an exact science, right? Like it's a practice.
Well, even talking to these people, I mean, some kids take Proxine 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 1 time a day. You know what I'm saying? It's different for everybody. So
exactly. So
Leah, if I can just jump in real quick, I just want to thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing it. And I wanted to thank Christy and Curtis and Anna for allowing the NKH community to be on the call today. It's amazing. I've learned so much in the last 6 to 8 weeks working with all of you guys and learning, so many of the same things, the misdiagnosis, the hiccups, the jaundice, the lack of early care, sending our kids home to die, as you said today, that's exactly what we hear with NKH. And so Curtis and Christy, you've done a good job putting these 4 illnesses together. And I think that we're going to really make a difference for our children today and the children in the future. And with that, if you guys don't mind, I do have a 1:30 meeting. And so I'm gonna jump off if you don't mind. Yeah. And thank you to the NKH families that came today. And Anna, again, you and your sister are doing a great job, and thank you for including us.
Yeah, and we'll keep in touch. Maybe it would be
Absolutely.
for all of us to hear also from other, groups, to see how we can grow. Yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you. And email me about the recording so I can get that out to our community.
I'll put that on my to-do right now. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Heidi.
Is that interesting to us, guys, to get in touch with these other conditions that are maybe not exactly, like genetically related to us, but experientially very related to us? Would we want to hear more?
I think so, because I think there's a lot of power in numbers.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that even if they're not the same, like everything, they are still related in some way. And if we needed to get something pushed through or whatever, having those people support us as well as us support them, and I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, I'll try to think about that. I know that Libby works with organic aciduria some, so maybe we can get her to like strengthen that and that relationship. Thank you, Molly. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so it's, I guess, like, again, sometimes it's like you're so focused on your own little thing, right? And then you're like, oh, wait, like maybe if we branch out a little bit, like it actually serves everybody. And so especially if anybody wants to become like a liaison to other groups, like Leah, if you want to keep doing that work, and I don't know, whoever really like hears this recording, that would be great too. So
I would love to.
yeah.
I connected with an NKH family, so that was one I was always like really familiar with. All I did was like crazy search, like what does this resemble? The doctors probably hated me. I'd be like, does he have Lennox-Gastaut? Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be, and they're like, ma'am, please put your phone down. I'm like, never.
It's interesting because I was just, the webinar I was on today, the National Academies here in DC were doing a thing on like how AI can help diagnosis, especially for like rare disease, because obviously, like the technology is evolving in the medical field. And one of the things that the patient representative said, which I think is so powerful, is she's like, the number one thing we have to stop giving patients a hard time for is Googling their symptoms. She's like, because what else are they supposed to do? She's like, they're left all
Well, they'll send you home. So if you have some sort of
Yeah,
ideas to be like,
exactly.
hey, did you not think about this? Like,
Right, exactly.
I
And so
did.
she was like, we have to, like, as a clinical community, we have to give patients like credit when they come in and they've looked stuff up, because that means that they're like, they're like engaged and active. And she said like the times of like shaming patients for like Googling stuff or, like overshadowing the medical degree are over, like, especially for patients who are concerned about having a rare disease or are managing a rare disease. So,
Rare disease patients specifically.
yeah. Yeah.
And plus we're on the forefront, like we're with it every single day. We see things that they might not necessarily see. Like luckily we had a video of Finley's first couple of seizures. So when we went in, I was like, this is what's happening. Because it's not happening every minute,
Right.
until it was. But I don't know. I'm glad that they said that. That's affirming. Yeah.
It was interesting because some guy had a good quote. He said, as a healthcare community, we should provide access to people when people want it, when patients want it, but access to technology when patients don't, because like sometimes like they do just want to talk to like, they just want to read through an encyclopedia and maybe they don't want to talk to a doctor right now. They just want to, like so like a chat bot that's basically like, could it be this? And the chat bot would be like, well, do you have these symptoms? And you would be like, no, and so it's interesting. I wonder what's going to come down the pike for like rare disease communities in terms of those chat capabilities.
That's one thing I always like to connect with disorders when I would go to those different conventions and conferences and summits and stuff. And I would get like really excited if it was one I had heard about, and could like speak on a little bit, because I was always looking for something that fit Jack. It didn't, it didn't matter. And I feel so much for like the undiagnosed network because it's so hard when you don't have anything to cling on to. And
Sorry.
I mean, I always say this, I never, am never lost on me that we have a treatment. Super grateful for that because so many things that we thought Jack had or that, he could have had did not have any kind of treatment, anything. Maybe it was just like this medicine typically does better with this disorder, but it's not going to stop seizures or whatever. So I know.
Can I ask you about the testing that they did previous for your third child?
Yeah.
How invasive is that?
It's so you can do an amnio if you like. You could do an amnio or a CVS. But
How do they get it out?
Is
That's what I really
it's
need to know.
vaginal. So
Okay.
go in vaginally with kind of like a little. It's like kind of like a needle suction thing. Like it really
Okay.
it wasn't bad. I was really nervous. Like I thought they were gonna have to go in, like amnio because
That's what I thought, like through the stomach, like a big needle is what I thought.
we were almost gonna have to do that because of how my placenta was laying. And so they made me drink this whole bottle of water, and then it like my bladder
Blew
like
up or something?
or something really disgusting, and they were like, "Oh, you can do it now," and they just took a little. I expected it to be much more crampy and stuff, but it wasn't. And there's 1% of the population whose placenta is not the same DNA baby. So that they told me that at the end, and I was like, "Are you serious? That's gonna be my baby." But there's always those teeny tiny percent chances of things, and
Right.
I wanted them. I got a microarray too because I wanted to know
What is that?
about it tests the chromosomes too. Like I wanted because
Okay.
in our search, right? Like I was trisomy and things that are not compatible with life. And I was like, well, no, like look at these kids living great lives. So I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to know.
To know. Yeah.
Obviously, I have a control issue.
Well, rightfully so. I mean, I do too. So I'm like, I can't give you any like, you got this because I'm right there with you. But I definitely would like to know because then I feel like you could just start the B6 and the diet right away, and like we already know what we're doing, so we can just like keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
But not having to go through the traumatic, your child might not make it phase,
Right.
you know? So
Exactly.
that would be much easier to bypass, very less traumatic. I ended up with a C-section because her heart rate kept stopping. She also had the hiccups, and I struggle and always have struggled with anxiety. And so every time I told anybody around me that I was like, I don't think that she's moving enough. Like, I just don't feel like she's moving enough. Everybody was like, well, it's, like, you're all right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like gaslighting myself, saying like, oh, you're probably just stressed out.
Mhm.
And when I really probably should have done something about it. I mean, I was almost 42 weeks pregnant. She wasn't, yes. I'm so sorry for all the noise.
And
Yeah,
I'm correct in understanding that, and I think all of our clinicians might be on, but that our bodies do not do, they don't do any, like they don't help the baby. It's not like we're like processing lysine for them. Like PKU, I think the mom's body does everything, and so the baby's fine until it comes out. But I don't think that's the case for our
So
baby.
I think so we go to Duke Specialty Hospital in Raleigh. We're in North Carolina here.
Awesome.
Well, maybe they're in, it doesn't matter, Durham. It's close. But she said that you could take a dose of B6, which I mean they obviously give to mothers that have like severe nausea and stuff during pregnancy, so it's safe to take. And I do think that that would help during pregnancy, but in the later stages of my pregnancy, she was doing hiccups or like weird repetitive movements and stuff, and I didn't really think anything of it. I'd never been pregnant before. I never even changed a diaper before. You couldn't have told me anything.
Right.
I would have believed you if you said anything.
Were so obvious. That's the only reason that I was like,
right.
Like this is weird.
Yeah.
And then it was summer too, so I'd be like, God, I don't feel him. I wonder if it's because like I was outside playing with my other kid and I'm so hot. And it was just random things that I would mention. But I wrote a whole blog on it one time early on. I knew something was wrong with him. And that first day, and the doctors were kind of like, it's fine. fine. It's colic, baby. He looks a little John, you know, and he was very sick. And if we could have done something
We,
today, but
sorry.
it's like I was trying so hard not to be like a crazy, like I was the first time. I don't know. It's hard. And there really is something, and I wish I
Yeah.
would have made people act with urgency looking back now, but instead I was so worried that I was the problem. I was the
Right.
easy one,
Yep.
and I'm
But
literally
that's what,
looking at a baby in status, like I haven't been in a seizure, right? Like I knew I was looking at something that wasn't right.
yeah,
Couldn't make
I'm really
myself
sorry.
make people, and now today I'm in there like throwing out doctors, like go ahead, read his chart, don't even talk to me, call the eye.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in there yelling orders because I'm like, no, we're not putting him through any more trauma. And now I'm the boss because I know what's going on.
We had asked about her eye movements. I was still in the hospital with the C-section, so like I was there for an extra day or whatever they keep you. And I asked about her eye movements, and then they told me that she was going to be like cluster feeding or whatever, and like up and like wanting to eat. She slept the whole time. They were like, "Did you not wake her up to feed her?" I was like, "Nobody." Again, I was very naive. I was like, "Nobody told me that I had to do that."
First.
Right, and I had no idea that that was any different. I thought that maybe like we just got a good sleeper. I don't know. Like we literally couldn't. I couldn't tell you. And her second seizure was during the middle of the night, so I slept with my glasses on for months because I wanted to be able to see her next to me, like what was happening.
Yeah.
So I just happened to wake up and look at her, and she was having a seizure. So
That's scary. Jack sleeps in my bed at night. He's huge.
I get it.
The more recent seizures, and anyone else that's on, feel free to like pop in. I can, or tell me to stop. I could.
Yeah, Leah, so there's two questions. CT had a question. I think they like lowered their hand. And then Amanda had a question about seizure monitoring at night.
Jack sleeps in my bed, and that's how we seizure monitor, and that is the best I got right now. It's his choice, but also I don't fight it anymore. Since he had a really bad seizure about a year and a half ago. We moved into our house from a stomach bug. I kind of knew that one was coming. So I do feel like I know when they're coming, but then he's had a couple, that I don't really. His seizures are controlled, but I'm terrified of SUDA. Like I don't have a good monitoring thing for. I'm very open to. He has a monitor in his room, so like a baby monitor. But like that's not going to tell me it's not going to like go off if he's out. No, I have not heard of the Sammy, but I would love to know more. Or maybe I don't know. When he was little, there were all these little things kind of coming out, but
I know the owlet. I think.
Yeah. And he had a pulse ox from the hospital. He was like so sick that first 6 months. Like he had suction, like he couldn't clean. He was, he was just laying there having seizures or on so many meds that he was also just laying there.
I had also wondered about seizure like animals, like dogs and stuff like that. If there were grants and stuff like that for.
I don't know. So we have a service dog, and she was trained, and it was just like super expensive. Our family all and kind of did it, but in true Jack fashion, he hates her. He doesn't like when she touches him, and like didn't when he was younger. So he never like but she's perfectly trained. She lives in our family. She's wonderful, and she tries to like do stuff with, like after his seizure in December, it was pajama day at school. It was the day before Christmas break. He had pajamas on, and he would like at home, he was on the floor because he was upset and like screaming and rolling around. And I was like, and then he'd be like, why am I in pajamas? And I'd be like, oh, it's pajama day at school. And then he'd get upset again because he would realize like he was home, he had a seizure, and Penny was like circling him and trying to like do all these things. And I was like, just come sit down. He doesn't want you.
She's like, I'm just trying to do my job.
I know, she's just always trying to do her job, poor thing. So
well, I just Googled, and it looks like there are a couple seizure alert devices that you can wear like around the top of your arm. And then also too, when the kids get old enough, depending on how you feel about it, Apple Watches have medical alerts as well, and you can wear that at night. Some people do it for sleeping. So just a couple
You're
options is
gonna
what it
look
looks
up the
like.
Sammy thing too that Amanda sent.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing everyone's. I'm so bad at Zoom.
I think CT was next. CT, do you want to ask your question? I know you had your hand up for a while.
Wait, really? How do you know if
Sure,
someone's?
sure. I'd like to, it's also a statement as well, but I know when our daughter, basically, we went home after she was born and she was making some weird movements and just yelling and screaming to one side. From right there, we had been taking video, cameras and things the whole entire time. She's 3 now, and last September, last year, um, she got really sick. She had RSV and wound up in the hospital for the whole month of September. And but prior to all of that, we had just been like taking video, photo. I just wanted to say, that us doing that helped out the doctors so much because, even though she didn't get the diagnosis till last year, the only year we didn't have an extended stay at a hospital was 2021. But she had been on seizure medications throughout that whole time. And but like I said, now she's doing good, starting school and different things like that. Um, but just having that access to video, I would say is a really big boon for the medical community because, like you said, um, they don't know. They only see what comes in. And for us to actually even get on this route anyway, her first appointment, she had a seizure in the doctor's hands. And, while she was examining her, she was like, yeah, you guys are going to go to the hospital. I'm calling my guy. Your guys are going to Children's. I was like, oh, great. Okay. And that was that. I just wanted to, harp on that fact of video, 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 Go ahead.
I
I
definitely
have a
second that for sure.
I
That
have
I always tell, like, when we do our meeting for school, I tell them if he has what can we do if he has a seizure? I'm like, honestly, it sounds horrific, but if you'll take a video for me,
Yeah.
that'll be the
Yep.
best. And they did, and the nurse did. He had a 7-minute seizure in December, and she took a video, and I was able to show everyone. And
Yeah.
they always involve his eyes. So it's interesting too because he's been going to optho for forever, and they're like, "Oh, does he need a surgery?" He has one eye that kind of drifts, but it's very neurological. So we've
Okay.
never,
Okay. Okay. And I have another question. My wife has a question.
yeah, you may mention about service dogs. So I'm not sure if anybody others kiddos experience some type of with their hospital stays, if they experience any type of PTSD or any anxiety or anything like that. We're currently going through that with our daughter, considering she's been in and out the hospital since she's pretty much been here. So I know she is experiencing a lot of different anxiety, trauma with, just from her hospital stays. So we were considering a service animal, preferably, a dog, but then I'm not sure if if she does well with that, because in the hospital they do like those companion dogs, and that's when she was first exposed to an actual dog, so now she won't go near a dog.
Yeah, she'll
But
stop. She'll stop if she she used to like going to the mall because there was a library in it. The one day they decided to have a dog in the mall, she shut down and was like, "I'm
yeah,
not doing it anymore."
so yeah, she does with a lot of different anxiety. So our going out and everything, it can be very challenging, but we have been told, recommended to do a service dog, but then we're trying to figure out how to get over that hump of her even
Go
going
near.
near
Yeah.
a dog. But then we have this anxiety situation that we're trying to navigate through as well, so it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Any advice on anxiety
Yeah.
or anything like that?
Anxieties are one of the hardest things because I've looked into so many different therapists too for Jack, but anything that's like a medical appointment of any kind, he shuts down, his behavior changes, it's awful. And that's so sad that your daughter has, she had that, first saw a dog at the hospital, and now that's kind of reminds her of her medical trauma. she probably just needs some really great experiences with like puppies or something, completely away from any kind of hospital or medical setting. I wish you guys look. I have 3 tiny foster puppies right now. I should have. I've fostered a lot on and off. But you know, just some really tiny puppies that and like a very positive interaction. I know that's like super hard to even set up and completely away from anything that would seem medical. I think she would probably need, you know,
Okay.
just to have some,
It
you
looks
know,
like you can also get a service cat.
true.
Really?
Okay.
Really? Okay.
I looked
Okay.
up different animals. It's not
Yeah.
just dogs. So maybe
She just
Yeah.
exposure
she
to
gets to see them in other
I
like
mean, her
settings.
personality is like a cat too. She can be very independent when
perfect.
she wants to be, and then, you know, be all happy and love you, and then the next minute turn around and just look at you with the I tell you, her
Yeah.
looks.
I love it.
But it's always been that way since
Yeah.
she's been little. Go
I
ahead.
guess now it's just trying to figure out if there are different like organization or companies that where I can at least go in and have her kind of interact with the dog before considering bringing it in the home, just to kind of get her used to just, you know, being around, or a cat, or, you know, just because how they used to do it in the pet store, you can go in and, you know, just play with the dog or anything like that. But I don't know if too many do that now. But just I wanted to at least kind of start her that way, and just kind of, I just don't know where to start as far as getting her exposed and to
How old did you guys say she was?
she's 3.
She's 3 now.
Where are you guys located, if you don't mind me asking?
We're in Maryland.
Okay. I would even see like even like a local humane society or anything. If they have kittens or puppies or anything like that, you can always go and visit and meet them. I know a lot of people do adoptions. I worked at a dog daycare for 3 or 4 years. That's the only reason why I'm suggesting this.
Okay.
But I would just see like a local humane society, give them a call and just be like, hey, this is my situation. Do you guys have a litter of kittens or puppies or anything like that? Just so we could come and say hello. Because she can get on their level, or she can sit in a chair and even just like meet them that way.
Okay.
Yeah. Before deciding to bring them into the home, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, do we feel like we're at a good place? Unfortunately, I have to jump, and Anthony's not around. The webinar running. To get back to
I
work.
think so. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
really
Leah.
appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Maybe let's keep some of those relationships with some of those groups, like reinvigorate them now that we have like a little bit more people, and maybe see where they are and what they're doing. I know Every Life is still going strong, Global Genes. I'm really sad about Gene DX. My first job was doing chromosome analysis, and I always wanted to work at Gene DX actually, so it's too bad. Amanda's gonna start a chat for us on therapists who can help kids who have like chronic conditions, because I do think that's important to like find a therapist for the kids who like understands what they're going through. 3 is probably like too young, but like probably when like around 5, you know, they can start talking. Anyway, so Amanda will do that for us on the Facebook group. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you guys so much. It was nice to.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.